to be entirely honest. I cannot believe I'm actually doing this, but people gave me a pretty good positive response in the video I did about Xerath, so the link to that will be in the description down below. And people asked me to do other content regarding Fairy Tail. Now, I don't want this channel to end up becoming a Fairy Tail channel, so I'm probably going to do mixed content, but I might as well give some people something to actually talk about, and that's the ending of Fairy Tail. So this video, I'm going to be virtually rewriting all the chapters of Fairy Tail from chapters 535 through chapter 545. It's going to be my version of how, in my opinion, I feel like Fairy Tail should have ended. Now, let's talk about the ending of Fairy Tail to begin with, because it's definitely not an ending I really necessarily agree with, and I feel like most people don't. So, the reason why Fairy Tail has a pretty hated ending by a majority of people who are in the fandom or not in it, is simply because you can clearly tell that Hiro Mashima was doing things that he felt like that the fans wanted, even though it really isn't something that you really should do. When it comes to a story, you should kind of focus on what exactly you want, even though the fans, like, what exactly they want is important to a degree. And you should have some type of consideration when it comes to that. That shouldn't be the only thing you focus on, because you're taking a series that's been around for, I believe Fairy Tail was around for 15 years, and you're kind of tossing in the trash with the ending that you gave, and pretty much all the people who were invested in your series for a long period of time, unfortunately, don't get the overall, I guess, satisfaction that they really should have gotten with the way how your series ended. Fairy Tail wasn't being canceled. It was extremely popular in Japan. It was doing very well. It was ranking pretty high when it comes to the manga sales. Fairy Tail wasn't in any jeopardy of that. It was simply Hiro Mashima's doing when it came to a lot of the things that happened when it comes to the Fairy Tail series, unfortunately. So let's talk about the final 10 chapters of Fairy Tail. So the final 10 chapters of Fairy Tail, unfortunately, I cannot change everything that was bad with the final arc of Fairy Tail, because let's be real, the Alvarez arc is by far one of the worst arcs in the Fairy Tail series, definitely one of the worst war arcs I've ever read, but there are a lot of things that I can change and make slightly better, at least in my opinion, what would be better and would fit more narrative with the story. And let's just kind of go through everything. So, in chapter 535, we actually have a very interesting dynamic between Natsu and Xerath. This is the chapter where you actually have where Natsu happens to come back to life after being run through by Xerath, and you have where the reason for this is because Lucy rewrote the book of E&D, at least certain scriptures that were within the book that were disappearing, causing Natsu to return back to life or save him from dying. So in this situation, I would definitely kind of keep it relatively the same. I would have where Lucy still does end up rewriting where Natsu does not die, but in this situation, she still would be undergoing the same curses that is, that I think it's the anchorism curse. It's the same curse that Xerath had, I believe, that was stretching off across her body and was harming her, and you have her graze the one who's there using his devil slaying magic to cool her off. I'd still have where all that stuff happens. The only thing I would change here is where I'd have where Lucy clearly states that Natsu, if Natsu dies, Xerath does not die as well, or that whole entire bond, that soul chain that's between the both of them, would be completely rewritten and taken off, so Natsu isn't hindered to kill Xerath in this situation. That is definitely one thing that I would definitely remove here, and it would come into play a little bit later on when it comes to the fight. So, during this fight, you also have where Xerath and Natsu, they're fighting each other, and you have where the door that is leading into another dimension, the astral world, or whatever the hell it was, the world of nothingness, is right behind Xerath. The doors that Xerath made are clearly there, and they're wide open. Xerath was about to walk through them before Natsu healed back up. I would have where Natsu and Xerath, they're fighting. Natsu's in Dragon Force or whatever. He's fighting Xerath. He's trying to hold his own. Xerath is still beating him. He's definitely stronger than Natsu by a huge degree, but Natsu is still able to do damage to some degree. Not to the point where it would necessarily hurt Zeref to the point where he's not able to fight any longer, or even to the point where he would end up dying, but enough where he would actually be able to burn Zeref and even harm him, just to showcase how strong Natsu is in comparison to other people. I would also throw in a flashback here, indicating some of the training that Natsu might have done during the 1 year time skip. Also, like, you know, maybe showcase the fact that Gildar's actually trained him a lot more than just that one instance, and all that stuff, just to kind of like hammer in, yeah, Natsu's very powerful, this is why he's powerful, and he actually did train. It wasn't just he became naturally strong in between the time skip, and the time skip's just there to be a plot convenient thing in order to showcase that Natsu's just stronger. I would have where something like that is thrown in, and I would also have where when Natsu happens to punch Zeref is sent flying back, and Natsu's also sent tumbling forward, and they both get sucked into that in-between dimension in that scene, and the doors would close so no one else can intervene. Now, because of this, that would also mean that the whole entire fight that happens at the very end of the Fairy Tail manga between all the Dragon Slayers and Acnologia would not happen in my version of the story. Instead, that fight would have happened earlier on in the manga, prior to Natsu fighting Zeref for the second time, and not that long after the events of Acnologia actually confronting God Serena and, you know, one-shotting him virtually. I would actually have where this fight takes place very soon, where all the Dragon Slayers happen to smell Acnologia showing up, and they all head towards that location. They fight Acnologia showcase how strong he really is. He beats all the Dragon Slayers, and you actually have, well, in this situation, I guess the Fiore group, or the people who are fighting against the Alvarez army, would flee back and retreat and try to heal the Dragon Slayers for their upcoming battle, and try to figure out some type of way to strategize in order to beat Acnologia. This would kind of be like the big warning for all of them. They'll be able to do damage to him, they might even be able to push him back to the degree, but Acnologia will showcase how strong he is, and also showcase the fact that he's able to overpower them. That would kind of be what I write in there. Now, continuing on throughout this chapter, you also have the iconic, very cool scene with Jellal, where he's actually trying to push back Acnologia in order to save, you know, all the people on the Christina, including Urza. And I think this is probably one of the coolest scenes in the Fairy Tail manga, and definitely one that I feel like could have led into a very cool encounter between Jellal and Zeref. Definitely something that I feel like really should have been established upon within the Fairy Tail story, especially since that was Jellal's whole purpose, along with, you know, the Ration Seis and Crime Sorciere, in order to kind of repent for their own sins, and also to defeat and even kill Zeref because of the fact that he kind of wronged everyone in that organization. So when Jellal is pushing back Acnologia, I would actually have where Acnologia would not be able to suck off the magic off of Jellal's body. He wouldn't be able to do that. He would have to actually like directly, like the attack would have to be like directly hitting him somewhere towards his mouth. It's not just the fact that he can suck out the air or whatever, and then the heavenly body magic would be removed. I would not have where that happens, or Acnologia simply just doesn't do it. And Jellal ends up pushing Acnologia through the time rift. That's what I would have happen. So that would also mean that the whole entire situation between the Christina hitting Acnologia, knocking him into the time rift, and also that really emotional moment where it seemed like Ichiya and also Anna ended up dying, that would not happen in this version either. Instead, all of them would have to be speculating, and Urza as well would be very, you know, worried for what happened to Jellal, because he went dead on and sacrificed himself, quote unquote sacrificed himself, in order to put Acnologia into the time rift, thus sealing him away forever. Now, during this situation, that would mean that there would be a 4 encounter situation between Zeref, Natsu, Jellal, and also Acnologia. Now, even though it does seem very odd that I am placing all these people in the same time rift, it actually does make a whole lot of sense when it comes to the encounters and some of the development that could easily be done throughout the course of this fight. So, I feel like a lot of people are probably wondering, okay, Jalen, why are you having Jellal here? Why are you not having someone else who's iconic? Why aren't you having the Dragon Slayers? Why aren't you having Gray, Lucy, Urza, etc. There's other characters that you can have here instead of Jellal for this final fight. Jellal just seems like a really weird character that you toss here. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up is the fact that there are a lot of things with Jellal that still aren't unknown when it comes to his power set, and also some things that he should be able to do from an interaction standpoint. There's a lot of room for development that could be made with Jellal if you include him in the final fight. Jellal is personally one of my favorite characters in the series, probably my second favorite, and I feel like it was a very big missed opportunity for Mashima not to include Jellal in this final situation. So allow me to explain. So while they're all in the Time Rift, you would have where originally Natsu and Zeref are just in the Time Rift, they're still fighting each other, and they would see the Time Rift, or the realm that they're in, it would crack open, and you would see Acnologia and Jellal be flung in there. Now, in this situation, you'd also have where Acnologia is still in his dragon form, but he would slowly be reverting back to his human form. Just to kind of have where there would be a overall dialogue exchange between the four of them before they end up fighting. Now, before they end up fighting, I would like to see Jellal kind of confront Zeref and talk to him, or at least try to initiate a conversation on his overall ideals and what exactly he is trying to do, and also see Jellal try to enact his overall revenge plot against Zeref. Now, during this situation, you would have where Acnologia would also be there. He'd be quiet, and yes, in this version of the story, I would actually change the way how Acnologia is depicted, because I feel like the way how Acnologia was done was not interesting at all, because Acnologia went from being one of the most hyped characters that could have been easily one of the best shonen protagonists ever, or not protagonists, antagonists ever, to being one of the worst. And it was simply because Mashima gave Acnologia a very simple mindset, I can't talk, by pretty much just going over the overall, ideology of just like strength is everything, blah, 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 that very simple-minded caveman mentality that was really boring, and I hated about Acnologia as a character, even though I still think Acnologia has one of the coolest designs in the fairy tale story. The way how he acted sucked. It was boring. Now, what I would change here is actually have where we get to finally see the flashback of what happened 400 years ago with the Dragon War. Now, I don't know for sure if this is necessarily the backstory that Acnologia was actually given, so if it was, excuse me, but I think this would actually be a pretty fitting backstory to Acnologia, and it would actually change him to actually be a very interesting character. Now, I would actually have the war 400 years ago between humans and dragons and all that stuff. It would be very similar to the Warring States period within the Naruto timeline. This would be a timeline where people don't live very long because they end up either A, dying because they're sent into the war and they end up being killed by a dragon, or a dragon flies over a village and just kills them, or just like the fights and how catastrophic they are end up destroying the things around them. Now, this would be actually a pretty lengthy backstory, not like anything crazy like 50 chapters of just backstory, nothing like that, but like 10 chapters where Acnologia actually happens to be the main quote-unquote protagonist of this backstory, very similar to the King Solomon backstory that you get in Magi. And we're seeing the story in this arc, this flashback from his point of view, how he viewed it. You get to see Acnologia learn dragon slaying magic, you see his affinity, which is, I guess, just magic in general, just the pure essence of magic. I'd actually rather have where Acnologia was like an Etherion dragon or something like that, like we had in the fairy tale story, the Etherion crystals or whatever. That would have been way cooler than just him absorbing magic, but for the sake of this, let's just have where he is still capable of just eating pure magic, right? Now, during this, we would get to see Acnologia learning dragon slaying magic, all that stuff, him fighting dragons, but we would also introduce during this time a character for Acnologia to kind of showcase the human side of him. The fact that Acnologia deep down isn't necessarily just a horrible person. It's just because of what happened in the past that changed him and turned him into this bad person, and why he has a certain quote-unquote mindset, which I'll get into how Acnologia's mindset is different in this version in comparison to what actually happened in the main story. So during this, right, you would have where Acnologia's mindset is different, and you would also have where there would be like a female character, whether it was like a younger sister or a lover, whatever, that would be there, a daughter maybe, particularly a woman, female character, that would be there for Acnologia, showcasing his human side. And after this happens, because of Acnologia, for example, maybe getting in a fight with a dragon, which happened to be around the same area where he lived, where him and this other female counterpart happened to live, the ashes of that, very similar to what happened with Natsu and Zeref, and how Natsu and his family ended up dying, and Zeref having to like revive them or attempt to, and all that stuff, would happen to Acnologia. And it might even be because of an allied dragon helping Acnologia take on another dragon, and maybe the embers either fall down and cause his family to die, or the dragons crash into the hut causing his family to die, something like that. A death is going to be needed in order to cause this transition in Acnologia. Acnologia, at this point in time, ends up gaining the mindset of, okay, dragons in general need to not exist. They're causing harm, whether they're on the good side or the bad side. They're causing harm to everyone, and they shouldn't exist. All dragon slayers shouldn't exist, so there isn't the possibility of dragons apparently coming back, and also no more dragons in general. And then Acnologia uses his dragon slaying magic. He kills the allied dragon who happened to be on his side, which I think was it Belsirion or whatever the hell his name was, the dragon that was friends with Irene, I think. And also have where like the enemy dragon gets killed, and then Acnologia just goes on a killing spree, trying to take out every single person who's capable of using dragon magic in general, whether you're a dragon or whether you're human. He just goes on a killing spree, and slowly Zeref happens to witness this and see Acnologia become a dragon, finally become like the black-winged dragon, the king of all dragons, quote unquote, and kill everyone in his path. And because of the way how Acnologia became a dragon, maybe when you become a dragon, your mindset ends up becoming a lot more different if you happen to originally be human, and you become a lot more bloodthirsty. So even though Acnologia originally had a pretty quote-unquote decent mindset, he ended up becoming a lot more corrupted because of the dragon slaying magic that ended up changing his mindset on everything. Kind of like how a lot of times dragon slayers, whenever they're in their dragon force forms, they tend to be a little bit more violent, not to the degree where it's like they're going around killing people, but they seem to be a lot more violent, a little bit more determined. Obviously this is not the exception for every single person, from what we've seen, but we have seen this a little bit with Natsu, and even I believe Sting and Rogue to a degree. So yeah, so after that the flashback will be over. You have where Acnologia explains all of that, so then Natsu kind of has a little bit of an inner conflict with himself, where he's kind of like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. What happened to you is messed up, but we can't have where you're just trying to destroy the world and rule it with the iron fist in order to kind of like make it better, because that's not the right way. So maybe Natsu tries to talk to him. It doesn't work. Acnologia is just kind of like, look, I'm not changing my mind. This is what I have to do. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to get rid of humanity. I'm trying to get rid of all dragons. I'm trying to get rid of you dragon slayers. Like, I just want the world to kind of be better, peaceful, the way how it originally used to be. Kind of similar to what Zeref's trying to do, where he's kind of like trying to reset it. But in this version, Zeref's reasons will become a lot more personal and a lot more selfish, where it's like, okay, the reason why I'm trying to reset the world is not because I want to save humanity, more on the lines of the fact that I just want to get my brother back and have my life the way how it should have been, not the way how it ended up becoming. And then you have where Acnologia takes them on. So we kind of get like a three-way fight where it's like Acnologia is fighting Zeref, and Zeref's also fighting Acnologia and Natsu and Jellal, who Natsu and Jellal are teaming up, and they're going all against each other. Zeref kind of might just say something to Natsu and Jellal, and he's kind of like, look, everything that we're trying to do to him is not working. Maybe during this fight, Jellal will finally use a Bisque break. That would be cool, so we can actually see what the hell it does. Zeref is using all this crazy magic. It's not doing anything. So we get to see these cool attacks from like all three of these characters going against Acnologia, but it's not doing anything because Acnologia can eat it or whatever, or it's just not affecting him at all. His body's just capable of negating the magic. So during this time, right, you would have where Zeref will kind of be like, look, Natsu, you haven't been able to do it. Your Dragon Seed and your Demon Seed, for whatever reason, are gone. The only way we're going to be able to take out Acnologia, because magic and curses are not the same thing, is if I turn you into END. END is something that Acnologia happens to be very scared of, and you'll definitely be strong enough to be able to take out Acnologia in that form, and if I need to, I will bring you back to the way how you have to. We just need to get rid of Acnologia here. Our disagreements will have to be settled then. So that will happen. you have where Zeref turns Natsu into END, or he activates it, whatever. We see a full-fledged END, whatever the hell it was supposed to look like. We see it at 100%. Natsu, like, let's say he has, like, freaking demon horns or, like, claws and stuff. I don't freaking know. Use your imagination for whatever the hell END looks like. And we see END Natsu fight Acnologia. He's on par with him, but he's not beating him. He's not beating him, but he is on par with him. He's doing damage. Acnologia is actually bleeding. He's getting excited. Natsu and him. Natsu's just acting like an absolute animal. He doesn't even have, like, sense of himself. And he's just fighting just on pure instinct, trying to push back Acnologia. You can even have where Jellal and Zeref are also there as support, trying to kind of push Acnologia back. Not necessarily doing any damage to him, but pushing him back so Natsu can actually finally get the finishing blow, which defeats Acnologia. So during this time, right? Let's say Acnologia is defeated, he's dead, whatever. Natsu, Zeref, and Jellal are all there. And because of the fact that, let's say Acnologia gets defeated, let's say Acnologia might have been connected to the time rift some way. He might have been able to consume the time rift, whatever. He doesn't necessarily goes on like this freaking spree killing a bunch of people like on his outside body like we were doing then, but more on the lines of because of the fact that Acnologia was defeated or because of the scale of the battle in general, they're released from the time rift. So Natsu, Jellal, and Zeref all end up back in the Fairy Tail Guild. And, you know, Urza, let's say when she's like, you know, in the ocean or whatever, or on the Christina, because they wouldn't be in the ocean in this version, she sees that the time rift like disappeared, like the crack is no longer there, and she'll kind of be like, oh, I can sense Natsu, Jellal, and Zeref, I can sense them again. Like they're out of the time rift, and then they start heading towards the Fairy Tail Guild. So during this time, Mavis will still be there. We'll still have the same exact conversation between Mavis and Zeref, where Zeref explained to Mavis like why exactly he wanted to kill Acnologia, all that stuff. That would have happened before Natsu like got one-shotted before by Zeref. Like all that stuff would have still happened. So Mavis will still get up. That whole entire thing with like, you know, her and Zeref, her confessing her love or whatever, and explaining how the curse of contradiction is a thing, and how the only way that Zeref can die is if she shows that fact that she has love for him. But I wouldn't have that whole split personality thing. I would just say that it didn't take effect on Mavis, because she didn't have to suffer with the curse as long as Zeref did. So the whole entire split personality thing of hatred and love isn't going to be prevalent for Mavis' character. She will just showcase the fact that, look, I get what you did. You had an original, like, very good clause for it, and I understand you, and I forgive you for everything you've done. But, like, Zeref, you don't need to reset the world, because, look, the way how it is now, the fact that Acnologia no longer exists, it's peaceful. So maybe Zeref, even though this is kind of a cop-out, and I know people might disagree with this, Zeref kind of accepts that, because Zeref's not necessarily like a quote-unquote full-fledged bad guy. He's kind of an anti-hero in a weird way, or even a neutral character to a degree. You have where he accepts that. He's kind of like, look, Natsu, you were, like, what you did, you were able to do it in a way how I was unable to. You were able to defeat Acnologia. I wasn't able to do that, even with all this power, with the fact that Fairy Heart, I wasn't able to defeat Acnologia. I'm just going to let you live the life that you want to live. Something that I wasn't able to do. And you have where Mavis and Zeref, they die, whatever, they go to heaven, they do not come back, they do not get reincarnated, they're done. Same thing with Makarov. Makarov stays dead, he does not come back. Loxus becomes the new guild master instead, in Makarov's name or whatever. And then you kind of just go into the epilogue. You get to see, you know, all that stuff. Pretty much the final chapter of Fairy Tail would stay relatively the same. The whole entire 100-year quest, I'd probably keep the same. Oh, before that, going back, I would have where when Mavis and Zeref die, right, they disappear, I would have where there would be a scene between Natsu and Jellal where they're kind of just talking, and how, like, maybe they even might joke around, like, oh yeah, it's kind of funny that you used to be an enemy of me, and then you ended up standing beside me in the final battle, all that stuff. And you would even have where Jellal even comes to accept Zeref's mindset and understands what he was trying to do, and just kind of be like, look, even though what Zeref did was very wrong, he wasn't as bad as I originally was thinking. He's not a horrible person, or something like that. To kind of just showcase growth and development for Jellal's character, his character arc. The final chapter, like I said, of Fairy Tail would be the same, except Loxus would be the Guildmaster. Gajil and... Okay, let me just get into the ships now, because I'm pretty sure people are going to be wondering. Gajil and Levi, them having a kid, fine. That's fine. Jellal, or Urza and Jellal, I'll have where Urza, maybe for time and time again, she does end up traveling with Jellal, just trying to make sure that there's peace throughout the course of, Fiore. But I won't have where they end up being like a couple. But they will work together very often, and they will acknowledge each other's feelings. But Jellal will still kind of go through a quest of atoning for his sins. That'll still be his thing. So I guess kind of similar to like what happened at the end of Fairy Tail anyways. Gray and Juvia, same thing. They hook up, whatever. I don't really care. Even though they're like my favorite ship in the story, and Gray's like my favorite character. I don't really have a problem with the ship. I think it makes sense. All that stuff. But the final one that people might be surprised that I will talk about, Natsu and Lucy. The final scene where Lucy hugs Natsu or whatever, and she kind of looks at his face. Honestly, I'm just gonna be fair. I would just let them hook up. Maybe it's not on the lines of like what people like want, like where there's like a huge wedding, they have kids, blah blah blah. But Lucy confesses her feelings for Natsu. Natsu might acknowledge them. They hug, they kiss, whatever. I don't freaking care. You just kind of go along with it. And it's just kind of like, look, we're a thing. You've been with me for a while. You've always been like, you're one of my greatest friends, one of my favorite allies. I care about you. You're one of the closest people, and you and Happy are my family. That can be something like Natsu says. I'm just kind of thinking of that like just on spot. And then you move on and you progress, and you have where there's the 100-year quest and all that stuff, and that's how Fairy Tail ends. GG. So that's my opinion how I feel like the final 10 chapters of Fairy Tail should have gone. Some things were cut out, some things were changed, removed, switched orders, whatever. Just kind of give me your thoughts down below. What do you think of this video? Do you agree with me? If not, tell me what you don't agree with and what you would have changed instead. I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. And anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Go to comment, subscribe. As always, guys, I love you all. Jellal, signing out.